Hmm. Hmm.
There's that face. The
All
face that launched 1,000 chips.
How are you?
Good, Jim. How are you?
Good, thank you. Good, good.
So it looks like the directions I gave you were adequate.
Yes, they were. This is, you probably don't believe this, but it's not the first Zoom meeting that I've participated in.
I would think you've been a very active participant in Zoom meetings, no?
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
Yeah, sure. Why not?
I like in-person stuff still, especially if Julie Tarmy were there, but you know.
Hi, Jim. How are
Oh,
you?
Julie Tarmy. Oh, Julie Tarmy.
Oh, yeah, that Julie Tarmy. How are you, gentlemen?
Good, good, good.
Hey,
Good.
Julie, I'm going to be there for Sunday's presentation.
Yeah,
I heard it's a winner.
That's what I heard too. I'm looking forward.
Yeah. Let's see. I got to open up something else here. What is it? Oh, I know what I got to do. So, oops, why is this not? Why is my, oh, I see. You got to plug it in or it doesn't work.
yes.
Yeah.
Are you guys traveling, Paul?
No, we are not.
Hmm.
Well, you think I'm married to Judy Walsh?
I know that you're not. But we're heading to Japan soon.
Really? When is that, Jim?
In March.
Mazel tov, and good luck to you.
We've put this trip off for 3 years now. This is Judy's birthday trip for her 70th birthday.
Oh, what happened to all my proposals? I had all the proposals here. Where'd they go? Oh, Jesus. Oh, this is so annoying. All right, now I gotta load them up because I know Lynn's gonna want me to show them. All right, let's see.
So Chief Dolan is wearing a coat, a sports coat. I didn't realize it was this formal.
Well, it's
oh, it certainly is.
very, very, Jim. You should go put one on.
Oh God.
I'm at the office. I couldn't sneak out.
All right, so let's see. I think they came. No, it's not that one. Open space. So I think they all came from Kristen. Here we go. Sorry if I'm talking out loud,
Muttering, muttering, muttering.
muttering and muttering. All right, so if I do that, it should download. Okay. All right. And I may as well do it that way. No, I've already had that. I've got that. Okay. And this.
Hey, Trish. Oh, maybe she's gone. Hi, Nance.
Hi.
Hi, Nancy.
Hi, Julie. Remember, we're being recorded, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, don't say those things you were gonna say. I mean,
Right.
Oh, I wasn't going to say anything other than hello.
So I think we have David Aldrich masquerading as Trisha.
ah,
And why am I only seeing Jimmy Dolan? What is he doing that makes his picture the only one I see? Oh, I see.
We can see you, Paul.
yeah.
Yeah, I guess when you move, do you become the big picture in the middle? I guess
Well,
not.
You can put up different things on the side, different
Settings.
views.
Yeah.
So I see everybody in little rectangles.
There's the view option. Oh, that's speaker. That's why. So when
Mhm.
somebody makes a noise,
Oh,
they become
Right.
the center of the field. I
Mhm.
see.
I live right next door to Jimmy Dolan. He does not make any noise at all.
Perfectly quiet.
that's
That's
good
right.
insulation.
Uh,
All right, let me test whether. Okay, let's see, where's my share screen? That's the one I want. Okay, so pardon me, are you seeing a diagram of tennis courts?
Nope.
No, you're not
Looks
sharing your
like- oh, wait
screen,
a
Paul.
minute.
Hi, this is Ellen.
How about now? Are you seeing it now?
Yes, we are.
All right, now. if I
Or
move this-
pickleball courts. It depends on your point of view.
Right, exactly. Now, how do I?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we
Yes,
can.
Oh, great, wonderful. So rather than putting the grant applications up, Paul,
Yeah,
maybe we should just start with, can we take that off the screen?
all right.
So why don't we actually call this meeting to order? I do apologize. I was just finishing another Zoom meeting that ran a little bit long. But anyway, glad to be here. I'm Lynn Spencer. I am the chairman of this committee. And we will officially call this to order, letting everyone know that we are doing this by Zoom, but certainly community participation is welcome. And they can join by being in the, what is it? Can't remember. What's the little thing at the bottom where you raise your hand? Come on, help me.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Raised hand.
the raised hand thing. Thank you. So also, let me just sort of introduce other members of this committee and their affiliations with this committee, starting with our erstwhile clerk. Mr. Town Hall.
Former, Jen. I'm an at-large member of this committee, Paul Spurn.
Okay. And next, Mr. Dolan.
Hi, nice to be with you. I'm a member as well.
Okay, Jim Dolan, he's a member at large. Nancy?
Nancy Cantelmo, representing open space, and my grandson's behind me. He's not a member.
Okay, good. Ellen?
I'm Ellen Goldberg, member at large, and any minute now, my daughter will be walking in the door and my 3 German Shepherds will lose their minds.
Okay, this is getting more and more exciting. Okay. Okay, let me see. iPad 3, is this a member of this committee?
We don't know. Who is iPad 3?
Anyone?
About
It's
to speak?
it's Dave Aldrich.
Oh, okay.
Hi,
All
David.
right, Dave, great. Other members of this committee who are not here at present, Austin Antrim, who was not able to join us tonight, and Dave Wilson, who I have not heard from, but perhaps he'll be joining us later on. We have a packed agenda tonight, but I'd like to start, which includes the beginning of our review of the grant applications that were received at Town Hall last Friday, the 27th. And I see various applicants in the room. I've just heard from Dave. I see Trish. And then, good to see you. And then I also want to acknowledge Julie Tarmy, who is listening in or for being on the screen if she chooses to, who is our liaison from the FinCom.
That's great.
So, okay. And I also see Dana Sheehan in the room. And I think, Dana, are you still on FinCom? No. Don't know. Okay. So we have a guest tonight who is asked to sort of speak to this group. I'd love to give him the courtesy of beginning this meeting after the review of the minutes. And so we don't have minutes to review, but we are trying to work with our friend at Town Hall to make that happen. Correct, Paul?
As far as I know, yes.
Yeah, I know. We're going to have to lean on them to make that, to get those minutes to us. All right. So with that, I'll introduce Jim Walsh, who is asked to speak with us tonight. Jim, because we do have a packed meeting, I'm going to ask you to be, your usual precise, concise speaker.
Absolutely.
And it's probably a little bit of a preview of what we might be, those of us who might be able to attend the Village Church breakfast on Friday. So, okay,
That's
Jim,
right.
thank you.
Jim Walsh. I live here in Nahant. I am approaching my 50th anniversary in November. And I moved here by accident, and I've thanked God every day since. I've belonged to committees of this town for the last 40 years. For some of you, I sent a list of the committees I've belonged to, leaving out the fact that I was a member of the original Community Preservation Committee.
That's right.
As well, when we first formed a committee. I asked to say a few words, and I take the warning seriously. These are my notes on what I was going to say, but I'll set them aside and simply say this. We are at a situation in our town where we have a tremendously important decision to make, and that has to do with compliance with Section 40B, which is the affordable housing law that requires us to be in compliance by law. And it has not been enforced that much in recent years, but due to the increase in population, the crowdedness and so forth in greater Boston, Nahant, I think, is finally going to become a target for those who would develop properties without regard to the culture that we have here in Nahant. So if we do not comply with Section 40B, then that enables anybody to come in. For instance, the grossest example I can think of is if someone came in and bought Bass Point and said that they were going to put up a 15-story building with fabulous views of Boston, the lighthouse, Egg Rock, etc., for which they could get tremendous rents on the upper levels. If they included some affordable rents, because we are not in compliance, would be not able to say that they could not do it. In other words, they could impose their will on us despite our zoning and so forth. So I'm a member, as some other people are here, of the Housing Production Committee that was formed recently. And the goal of the committee is to come up with a plan that will bring us into compliance, not only with the 40B, but also with the recently passed transportation regulations that require housing development adjustments as well. But 40B is the big problem. There are two ways to comply with 40B. One, you have 10% of the units in your housing units in your town definable as affordable. And that right now we have 48. We need about 160 or so to be in compliance, which means you would have to add 110 or so units in our town. And if a developer came in and said, well, we're going to add some percentage of we're going to put 25% of the 100 units that we build, we would not be able to fight them effectively. We would be subject to their will. However, as part of this committee that Lynn and Dave Wilson and I belong to, it has been discovered there is another way to comply. And that way is to have 1.5% of the land area in your town dedicated to affordable units. If we were to develop the Coast Guard housing, use that whole thing for affordable units, affordable being for families, elderly, handicapped, what have you, some mixture of development there that would be affordable, we would then be in compliance, fully in compliance with the 40B requirements. We would not have to build 110 additional units. We would not be subject over the coming years to the wishes and desires of people from outside of town who do not have our best interests in mind. Therefore, I wanted to say to all of you on this committee that in your thinking in the coming months and year, please keep this in mind. That is, there will be, I hope, a way to develop the Coast Guard housing in a way that is green, that is not only affordable, but environmentally at the highest levels. And the biggest problem we will face is money. Now, I don't want to go into all the details on the money, but I know you have certain financial resources available to you. And I know you have a lot of people who would like access to, to that money legitimately. But I would just like the committee to, if possible, keep in mind the fact that they've, for as much as possible, set aside some financial resources to be called upon in the future to help with this project. So that is my desire fulfilled.
Okay. Well, thank you, Jim. Appreciate that. And yes, indeed, Dave Wilson, Jim and I do sit on the Housing Production Committee that is now in process. That project is being funded in part by a grant from Community Preservation made via the town meeting vote last year. So that's a process that needs to sort of be able to sort of carry on its mandate, which is looking at how we make housing available to our community in a thoughtful and productive way. So, all right.
Jim, what's?
Any questions from the committee for Jim?
Thanks, Lynn. Jim, when is this committee going to do its, finish its business? And what is the product of your deliberations going to be? And who's going to act on it and how?
How long do you have, Paul? And
I got 2 minutes. I'm sure you'll nail it.
actually, Tony could answer those more precisely than I could. You want to do that, Tony?
Tony, thank you for joining us tonight.
Yeah, sorry I jumped on late, so I didn't catch any of I just caught the end of what you were saying, Lynn, and Paul's question.
Okay, well, we're asking you about the Housing Production Committee. What's the timetable for their work? What do you expect them to produce? And who's going to deliberate or act on it, or both?
So the Housing Production Plan Subcommittee has really kind of two different tasks in front of them. Both are being helped by MAPC, Metro Area Planning Council.
Yeah.
One task funded by the grant that CPC approved last year, the other by a grant that we got from the state. And the two tasks are, one, to produce a housing production plan, and the other is to work towards compliance with MBTA community multifamily zoning requirement. Our contract with MAPC goes through June of this year, 2023. But there's, as you know, elements, any changes in zoning, anything that would require town meeting likely would come after June of 2023 of this year, whether that be a special or annual town meeting next year. So final action on any items requiring a vote would be, somewhat dependent on that schedule and, the need for a town meeting.
Thanks, Tony. Other questions from the committee?
May I just add, please, that Michelle Capano is on this as well, and she is the chair of that committee.
That's right. Yes, and we certainly want to acknowledge her leadership and
Right.
the care and attention she gives to this process. It's not uncomplicated. It is complicated, and it involves coordination. Yeah, it involves coordination with the planning board and with the short-term housing subcommittee. So there's a lot to it. Thanks, Michelle, for taking this on. We really appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Okay. So Jim has actually put, the case in front of us, as part of our brief, which is, the three legs of our stool. Affordable housing is certainly one of them, and we have had investment in affordable housing in the existing building stock in Nahant since this committee began its work. But there is a greater challenge in front of us, and it's not just, in my mind, protecting us from adverse 40Bs. It's also certainly partly that, but it's also providing opportunities broadly for folks to be able to live in this community. We've learned a lot from the analysis that our consultants have provided to us. We've learned that there's wider need than any of you could imagine in terms of the ability to afford housing in this community.
LA.
So, I'm sorry? Well, okay. In any event, Jim, you're doing a presentation on Friday.
On
And so
Friday?
this is,
At 8 o'clock at the Nahant Village Church, the monthly community meeting breakfast. It would be nice to see some of you there. I will be expressing my opinion on these things. I do not represent the committee. We are a group of people who will be exchanging opinions over the coming weeks and hopefully come to a good, creative, impactful. That's right, dog.
okay, all right, very good. Thank you, Jim. Really appreciate you joining us.
Appreciate it.
Great. Okay, well, committee, Jim, you're welcome to stay on and hear our business, but
I'm gonna have dinner, Lynn. Thanks.
you're welcome. Okay, very good. All right.
Yeah.
So we appreciate that Kristen Taylor sort of was a recipient of the 9 applications that we've received. They've been distributed to the group. And I've started to put together, if you will, a spreadsheet that actually is our sort of running sort of guide to this. I hope that you've all had a chance to at least do an initial run through of these applications. And my proposal is for us tonight is to begin with the first one and sort of then roll through as many as we can in a reasonable period of time. This committee is meeting for the next month at least on Tuesdays at 7 o'clock. So those who are in the room can certainly join us as we go through our deliberative process. Paul, I know I sent it out late in the day and I sent it to everyone, but are you able to put up the, actually, thank you for doing that, but do you also have a copy of the spreadsheet that I started to put together?
No, but I'll go looking for it while you look at the first,
Well,
unless you want to do the other first.
I'd like to do the other first because
Sure.
I'd like to give a financial
All
framework to
right,
this.
let me see if I can find it. Hold on. It's in
Yeah.
an email, correct?
Yeah, it was an email that was probably sent just before my last meeting, so like 5:30 or so.
Is it the correct CPC grant proposal form open space? No.
No.
Hmm.
You know who else is pretty swift at this? So Ellen, do you have it by any chance?
Yes, I have it open.
Can you
Oh,
put
here
it
it
on the?
is.
Oh,
Here it
Paul's
is.
got it.
I got it.
Okay,
Never mind.
all right, great.
Just a
Okay.
minute.
Whoever's fastest at getting at this on the screen is what I was looking for. So I'd like
Okay.
you to just scroll down to the bottom, if you would. Wait, not all the way to the bottom. Yeah, let's look at the funding that we have available because I think it's useful to have that as a framework. Thank you. Okay, so right now, just to be conservative, I'm projecting a $450,000. Stop moving that around, Paul. I'm
Go ahead.
projecting $450,000 available from our 3% tax surcharge with a 70% match from the state. It's according to the Community Preservation Coalition, the funding is looking quite strong. But at least as a starting point with what I know with Allison Nieto at Town Hall right now, I think this is a reasonable number to work with. We have available in our general reserve $169,664, and in our housing reserve $5,816. I'll just remind the committee and listeners that the way community preservation works is that 10% from this amount, it would be $45,000, would be set aside every year for affordable housing, for open space / recreation, and for historic preservation. So if I sort of take out the housing reserve, that really can't count towards this, we could potentially have granting ability of just over $619,000. Okay, so that's just a sort of a, if you will, a picture frame around this. Any questions from anyone? Okay, then let's go to the top. And the committee is familiar with this, but we use this basically as a running sort of analysis of applications as they've come in. I actually would like to sort of start with the first one. We received it in two parts, and I think Paul had one part of it on the screen a moment ago. But we have an application from a group. Well, the applicant in this case is David Aldrich for modifications to the Flash Road tennis court in order to accommodate pickleball activity. The application, the total amount of this is being requested is $39,720. And there is a match that is actually being proposed by this group of $6,610. So the total project cost is coming in at $46,330. This, as I understand it, is actually working with the existing tennis courts that were actually completely recreated and dedicated last year, to modify them with lines, windscreens, well, a host of things on those courts. And I think we could also look at the diagram that shows what they're planning to do. There we go.
I hope you're impressed with the visuals, Lynn.
I am, and I think you are. You're the cat's meow when it comes to
getting
moving
better
this
at
stuff
this.
out this. I'm impressed.
Okay.
I just gotta
Sorry,
keep nattering.
sorry to interrupt.
Oh no, we want to give compliments when deserved. So you get it. You get it. So pickleball. Now,
You're seeing the courts, aren't you?
yep,
Okay,
Yep.
fine. So the tennis courts are in blue,
right.
and the four courts laying on top of them are the pickleball courts. And you could have two on at one time, or none, or four. It wouldn't make any sense to have three, obviously.
Mhm. So I just want to sort of make a comment. You know, the committee that has worked on this has done a lot of hard work to pull together numbers and, you know, an approach to this. The only thing that strikes me is that this is on a town-owned property, and is likely going to be subject to public procurement requirements. So that may be just a factor as we consider this. It probably would be a budget factor ultimately.
Lynn, can you explain in a shorthand what prescriptions that entails?
Given the estimated amount of, you know, just under $50,000, it's not too bad, but it would require going out. And if Tony, are you still on?
Yep. Yeah, I'm here.
Okay. Well, actually, I'm going to defer this to Tony. So Tony, why don't you tell us what you would be required to do according to Chapter 149?
Well, regardless of the procurement side of it, any labor would have to adhere to prevailing wage law. So
Right.
I don't know if these projected costs include that or not. And then if it does trigger certain procurement requirements, it could be as simple as us having to solicit 3 quotes from 3 different companies. We may need to have a 50% bond. We may need to have to advertise it at a higher level. So it all kind of comes down to which category of procurement it would fall into. So that's something that, we've, as I've seen in the past, working with your committee is, we go to procurement and then the lowest bid ends up being, sometimes it can come back higher than what the budget was approved for, or what the grant amount was approved for. So we'd want to try and be flexible in how that contract or how that procurement would work, so that we could, at least get, I could see from their application, there's a whole host of items that they would like to include here. I'm sure they would prioritize them if, say, the bid comes back exceeding the budget.
Okay, so thank you. I think, because it's over $30,000, I think we're going to it probably would be going into the central register and all that kind of good stuff.
The town of Nahant would manage that process, though.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't know if the committee, as they've looked at this, I know this is a first pass on this. And I think that what we'll want to do is to ask the applicant, as we go into the more in-depth reviews, to actually get on the to make their presentation to us. But as the committee has looked at this on a first pass basis, I've just raised a point about procurement, so that may mean some tweaking of this application. Other committee members' thoughts on this?
So I know that the statement was made because they're not going outside the boundaries of the already existing place. It doesn't interfere with any wetland problems. But I thought that when this was being explained to me, there's some kind of mushy ground around the outside that may need to be amended so people can get to these courts. And so does that mean we'd have to involve, people from the wetlands or anything, or not?
We've already had a conversation with Kristen Kent from
Yeah.
the Conservation
Concom.
Commission about, doing some permeable surface, like on the outside edge there, so that people can, don't have to walk through a puddle or through
Right.
mud. As long as it's permeable, we may need to go in front of the Concom anyways, but it's already kind of in motion in a sense, and, really doesn't need to be part of this application.
Okay.
The town plans on taking that project on its own, regardless of what happens with this application.
Okay. All right, good. Anyone else?
Tony, have they spoken with you about rules and regulations for the use of the property and for signing up for courts and maintaining use of the property primarily by members of the Nahant community? Is that something that town hall's going to issue some guidelines on? Or is it going to be kicked all the way up to the level of a special commission of Nahanters to make some rules for this?
I think, I think the application is really well thought out and took a lot of the town's, whether it be the selectmen, myself, other users of the recreational space, other committees or whatnot. A lot of those comments seem to be incorporated into this application. The biggest one being, having a dual use facility. So I think that's great. They do, at the end of the application, they discuss a little bit about a online like registration system to help with coordination of usage of the court. That's something that I prefer not to be included in the language of an article if this were to make it to
Right.
that point. That's something that the town would have to, the selectmen and I would have to kind of think about how we would want to handle that.
Okay,
Okay.
that's a good point. Thank you. Other committee comments or at this point? Well, I certainly agree that this was a well thought out application. I think it also is commendable that folks are that over $6,000 is being contributed to this. The only thing I want to do is just make sure that we have enough budget to do the job. Now that we are bringing up the public procurement aspects of this. So Tony, given their budget, if you could actually consult, on the consult, bring to us what your recommendations are on the procurement process and how that may affect this budget request, it would be helpful.
Okay, I could connect with Dave and find out, who they use to get those pricing and go from there. That might be a good first step.
Well, no, I'm going to roll back for just a second. Just say it's a $50,000 budget at this point. So the question is, what would your public procurement requirements be?
Oh, I can get you guys that
Yeah,
information.
let's start with that.
Yep.
And then we will sort of ask Dave and his committee at our next meeting to go through how they prepared their background, but their cost assumptions. And then we'll see how we can actually make a good marriage, quite honestly.
Yeah, and Tony, just related to that reservation system, I just double checked their budget and they included $825 for a 5-year subscription to a reservation system. I'm assuming that's what that is. It's probably some professional management for reserving court space.
Yeah. Well, I mean, well, we can keep talking about it. I think I just wouldn't want a town meeting article to kind of restrict the town into having to use such a thing. I think that's more of a, a discussion of the selectmen and how we operate our public parks and that sort of thing. Just want to be careful about what the language says, but it's okay that it's part of their, estimated cost for the time being.
Okay. I think the issue had to do with trying to give people who wanted to use it as tennis courts the option to be able to do that and not feel that anyone was shut out. I mean, how it gets accomplished is one thing, but the idea is a good idea to make sure everyone gets access to it.
Yep.
Yeah. My question about that is it references these rolling nets. So how does it work if the courts, so there are tennis nets now. How does it work with pickleball nets? And
Would you like me to
things
comment?
around?
Would you
No,
like me
I
to
actually,
comment?
Dave, what I'd like to do
Sure.
is to be able to give you a chance to to be part of a presentation next week.
Sure.
So
Perfect. Okay.
I'd like to, Just kind of
Yeah.
roll through our applications at large, and then next Tuesday, would love to be able to sort of really dig into this in detail.
Sure. I was just, when the questions came up, I just thought I'd offer. So I'm looking forward to next Tuesday.
Yeah, that would be good, because this dual use is one of the fundamental issues. So
Yep.
we'll dig into that next week.
Okay, great.
Okay? Thanks,
Okay,
Dave.
where are we going next, Lynn?
We are going to, number 2 on the list was from Eric Green for the golf
Okay.
course pond and well project. Let's just go to the applicant. Thank you.
The applicant. All right, where would that be?
On page 1 of the grant application.
Oh, page 1.
Yeah, just keep rolling. You're rolling.
This is the grant application. Oh,
Yeah.
this is all that other crap. That we
Yeah, it's
have.
all the other.
Right.
No,
That we
that's
tried to get
valuable
rid of.
information we couldn't get rid of. Not crap. Come on.
Right,
All right, hold on, right there.
there we go.
So
Got it.
applicant's address and phone number, it's a mystery.
Oh, it is, isn't it?
Right, but
Okay.
what was listed in the attachment was Eric Green Golf Course Pound Committee. And I gather that Eric is on some kind of committee for the golf course. Again, this is one of these issues where this is a town-owned property. And it seems to me the applicant needs to have coordinated closely with the town through the town administrator and the Board of Selectmen on the application. Maybe they have. At this point, we don't know. What we do know is that they are applying for engineering as well as implied design services to come up with the pond restoration and looking at the possibility of installing a well. And that the budget amount is $75,000. Not quite clear about how that was arrived at. So
All right. What else would you like to see?
well, we just can keep rolling through it, you know, again, $75,000. Keep rolling.
No independent funding.
No match. And then what we're seeing are a lot of empty spaces under other parts of this grant application.
Okay, and the appendix is ours.
Right, there's
So
nothing to
that's
do there. That's that. That's that. So I think that there's some real blanks here. And it may be the applicant didn't understand that we actually like to see a full application. And so based on the committee's view, we can sort of kick this back to the applicant. But I think there's a larger question that also has to be answered and that is how does town administration and management view this? And is this consistent with the leasing policies for the golf course? Tony,
Well, I'll have
cue
to get,
you.
I'll have to get an answer for you on that. I
Yeah.
do have to admit, as you mentioned, as you looked at this, I'm guilty of not filling out the applicant name and phone number on my applications as well.
Oh, well,
Yes, you were.
we'll talk
actually,
about that.
But you know, the school teacher and me will bring that up when the time comes. When the time comes.
But yeah, let me, I knew this was, it was discussed, it's been, looked at in the past. I think if, generally I'm thinking, if $75,000 is for both the study and construction, it's really hard to figure out what that
Right.
dollar amount should be at this point. It might be a step-by-step process that we should look into. But let me circle back with Eric and the selectmen and I'll be on your call next week.
Please do,
Great.
because this is a very intriguing thing. It raises a lot of questions. You know, Nancy will in a moment say we're going to have to go to Concom and all this kind of thing. But I think that we want to give, you know, due consideration to what's behind this. We certainly understand that flooding, water control, and yet irrigation may be something that is desirable for this important recreational complex. As for me, I also think it's an important wildlife and ecological preserve. I think of it as Bear Pond, not the golf course. So anyway, more to follow on that, but please connect with Eric and that committee and just help us get more information. At the same time, we will, as we review some of these other applications, understand the value of how a planning grant approach followed by a subsequent implementation application may have some value here. Fund the planning first, then let that follow its course, and then come back with an implementation plan.
Can I say something, Lynn?
Sure thing.
So we've heard in the past, and I don't know the validity of it, but someone keeps telling us that there's some kind of threatened species that lives in Bear Pond. So like, you know, that may come into this whole thing if people want to start messing with it. I just don't know that that's true or not. The other thing is, you know, we have another grant further down from the town of Nahant that involves Bear Pond and building a bridge over it or planting trees in the area. And, you know, some of that justification had to do with the trees absorbing the water. So there's some kind of overlap in these projects in a way. So we may have to think about them together. Just my thoughts about that.
Yeah, I'm happy to do that. Let's jump out of sequence, if you will, and take a look at what was labeled as Town of Nahant Kelly Green trees. Can you do that, Paul?
I don't know which one it is.
It was number 7 on this.
Okay, so it would probably be this one. Can't tell you how nice it is to thumb through our own grant.
Okay.
Is
Wait.
this it?
No,
Next.
that's not it.
Next one.
All right.
Oh,
The
nope.
one in front of it. The one in front of it.
You had it the first time.
All right. I didn't put numbers on them, Lynn, because of the confusion with numbering the diagram for 1 as number 2.
I called it 1.2. Okay,
Yeah,
there we go.
I did the same. So do you want me to change the numbers back or just leave a blank for 2?
Just leave a blank.
Yeah, I think that's a better idea. Okay,
Okay,
here we are.
here we go. Great. So I think Nancy has actually introduced this one. We've got tree plant. We've got a lot going on here. Let's just get to the project description. Let's go down a little bit. Again, the applicant is unclear. It's a mysterious Town of Nahant application.
Sorry.
Okay, so what do we got here?
So, yep, so this one came from me. There's what we're applying for is funds for trees, funds to restore the existing pedestrian bridge that goes over Bear Pond, and purchase and install new bridges, which would be part of the stormwater system project that we're working on. So Nancy mentioned invasive species, which tied into a stormwater analysis that the town conducted over the past year related to lowland stormwater. And long story short, we have a series of ditch systems that go through the golf course and go towards Bear Pond. At certain parts of the golf course, it goes from an open ditch to a underground corrugated piping, which over time can become unlevel. It can get clogged. It can kind of limit the flow of that stormwater, which then the entire course and the actually neighboring communities suffer from that. So part of what that project suggested was opening those, eliminating those underground pipes and having it be a continuous open ditch to Bear Pond, which would require the installation of cart and pedestrian bridges, not big ones, only probably like a 5-foot span, 4 feet wide, but something that you could drive a cart or walk over to cross a ditch that went across a fairway.
Okay, so Tony, I'm going to actually then ask you to hold on this right now because you are going into the deep discussion of this grant, which we will want to do
Yep.
when we, do the in-depth
Sure.
discussions by the applicants. But it does reinforce that this is one application for the golf course, and then we have this other application for the golf course. So I think my thought is, and the committee can agree with me or not, but my thought is that you kind of connect with Eric and the golf course committee and decide which of these or which part of these, are these both independent applications or do they relate to one another? Because the first one was, a survey and dealing with the pond and the well water. And this one is also dealing with water and water management. That's my thought. Committee, I'd love to hear anyone else raise a point about this. Maybe I made that too complicated.
No, I agree with you. They're dealing with the same piece of property. They're coming at it from somewhat different angles, but trying to deal with the water. It's a huge problem we've been talking about for so many years.
Yeah.
And it needs to be dealt with, but I think these two do have to be related to each other. And
Well,
Yeah.
just our application, none of the funding that we applied for would go towards the stormwater system itself. That would be funded through the town's operational budget and or any grants that we're able to achieve. Our application is for the bridge that would go over it to be able to continue the recreational aspect of the course. So just making that distinction, but I won't go in, I'll wait until we go through these more in depth at another time.
Okay. Well, you understand our desire to sort of understand how they do relate.
Yep.
So, okay,
Me
that would be
too.
great. Yeah,
Me too.
yeah, I know. Okay, well, this is wonderful. This is the great part about citizen volunteers and people really trying to do the best for the community at large. So I appreciate that. Next on our list is from the Nahant Historical Society. More town records, care and conservation. I think committee members will remember that initially the Historical Society had applied for dealing with the conservation and digitalization of the school log books as one application. Last year, we asked them to divide it into 2 parts, and I think this is therefore the second part. The request is for $23,725 for historic records care.
Yeah. Conservation and digitization.
Yep.
And also the good part is they didn't use all their money from the last time.
Good
got-
historical.
It was less than that we had budgeted for.
That's great. Well, that's one of those great clawback moves that we'll be doing, Nancy, later on.
Right.
Yeah, the eye crossing analysis. Yeah. Okay.
Oh, so here's an example of what they're going to work on.
Whoa.
Black mold.
Yikes.
I guess these are the
Black
before,
mold.
these are the before pictures.
Yikes. Okay. Usual very thorough application. We get a lot of information, including a cost estimate.
Okay.
Okay. All right. So next on our list, we have back-to-back two applications related to open space and recreation areas here in Nahant. Oop, here we go. Stop right there. Stop. This is for the Bailey's Hill Complex from Chris Aldrich, the chair of the Open Space and Recreation Committee. Chris, that's a new assignment for you. Congratulations. Okay, so this is the phase two of the committee may well remember that we gave $41,000 a couple of years ago to begin this process of removing invasives, dealing with drainage and slope issues, and so on. And this is the second part of that, which is continued management and removal of invasives, and actually then the planting of new materials using native species, which is very exciting. So the applicants are going for $38,690 and have given us a breakdown in Appendix B. We could get to Appendix B, that would be good.
Here's Appendix A. B can't be far behind. Stop that
So-
now. Here we go. The map, the figure.
That's what has actually recently been taken care of. It's worth a walk over there to take a look at this. I think everyone will be benefited by that experience. So they have reached out to Partier to give actually a plant list. So,
I don't
This
see
is-
Appendix B.
well, it's right there. You've got
It
it.
is?
Yeah, the plant list that they refer
Oh, the
to
plant
and the
list.
budget.
Okay,
Yeah,
got it.
yeah. So we've got a lot to absorb here. It's I think it's exciting, but it is a lot to absorb, and we will give Trish and her group a chance to actually take us through this in some detail when they come in to talk with us in the review process. But in the meantime, do I have any other comments or concerns from the committee as they've reviewed this initially?
Just to say that this is missing a page, and that why everybody got another
Yeah.
thing, because the last page, which includes the management of the invasives, sorry, didn't quite make it on here. So that's talking about that. And we'll talk
Does
about
that go after this plant list?
Yeah, it does.
Nancy?
It's another page, but
Okay,
it didn't
got
make
it.
it
I
on,
just
and
need,
it's-
I just
it's
want to
in
know
the-
where I'm going to put it.
yeah, it's in the
Okay.
other document that came later today.
I sent it later. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
Okay.
we'll have by next week, we can look at it.
Good. In the meantime, go for a walk over there, everyone, and take a look at what has been started, and then we'll think about what can be done to finish it up. Next up, busy Trish Aldrich, coming forth again from Open Space and Recreation with an application for implementation of the Lodge Park Management Plan. I have to say, I had the pleasure of attending the public presentation that was made by their consultant, whose name I'm forgetting right now, but he was from Mass Audubon. And it was very interesting, and a very thorough look at Lodge Park and how its purposes can be enhanced, and made accessible while to the public while preserving the ecological resource. So this is for implementation from that planning document. And then we have a budget coming up soon, don't we, Paul? Yep.
There it is.
Yeah. So they're asking for 24,000. I can't see the rest.
24.9.
24.9. Okay.
Oh, you don't see my whole screen?
No, I just have to move all of you.
Oh,
Yeah. Oh, you forgot the $2, Paul. Mine.
okay, there you go.
Yeah.
And we're getting $1,000 from Swim.
From
for
Swim.
this.
Yeah. We only had 2 applications, as I recall, that had matching money associated with them, and this was the second. The first
Mhm.
was the pickleball.
All right.
Again, a well conceived and thorough application in my mind.
Well, and this is the follow-up to the money that we gave for planning for this area last year, correct?
That's right.
I
So,
wish I had known about that public presentation. I would have liked to have seen it. I'll go look for the recording. I'm hopeful it's somewhere.
So we have the plan that you can look at. And
Oh,
also
great.
the slides from the presentation, which are really spectacular. So those are available.
Are they on the town website, Nancy?
No, we put them on the Swim website. They're not on the town
Okay.
website. We'd love
Okay, perfect.
We'd love
Thank-
for them to be on the town website.
That can be arranged.
Thank you.
okay, done. Great.
Thanks, Nancy.
All right.
All right. So that's also on our list. So just rolling through, the next one is from the town of Nahant.
I think this is the one, this was the Bear Pond, wasn't it?
No, we're going to skip Bear Pond because we've already talked about it.
Yeah, let me make sure that that's what this is.
Okay.
Yeah, okay, we
Yep.
did that one.
Yep.
All right, what's this one?
Rights of
Right of
way.
ways.
Again, the mysterious applicant. Sort of like, yeah, Phantom of the Opera. Anyway, committee members, you will remember that for a number of years, we probably have given at least 3 app grants to fund documentation of the town of Nahant's public rights of way. And so this is a continuation of that program. This is attempting to actually survey and actually get the title work. So this is all very clear. And then to make efforts to make those rights of way open to the public again. And in some cases, there's been, if you will, an erosion of public access because of nearby homeowners perhaps not realizing that that was public. So this is $20,000 for that continued effort. There is a small amount of money still in unexpended in some of those past grants. So when the committee looks at this, we're going to look at that past money and actually understand how much is available from that as well.
Okay.
Okay, so Tony, we're going to give you a chance to dive into that when the time comes. Our last application is from Diane Dunphy, Town Clerk, and it is for the deacidification and binding of town records. The requested amount is $25,000. Again, committee members will remember a 4-year project that we had to deal with the historical records. Those records that went back to basically the founding of Nahant when it was separated from Lynn in 1853. So we did that several years ago, 4 different grant rounds of this. And so this is a new application. And I think it's important to look at what records Diane is actually applying for. So if you just scroll through this, Paul.
All right, you want to skip over the budget?
No, I want to go to the records themselves.
All right. Let's see, that's not it.
No.
I don't know where it would be. I thought we'd already seen it. Let's see, is this got something to do with it? No. No. All right, let's go back to the beginning.
So she said the last time it was from the 1800s up to 1990. And this time she wants it from 1990 to 2022 records.
And that's my point. Thank you. Thank you, Nancy.
You're
Cue
welcome.
Nancy. So this is for recent records. And I think there's going to be a fine line between whether this really falls into the historic preservation category, or if this is simply, you know, the town should take care of its records appropriately. And perhaps start by using acid-free paper. So that would be a start.
It does include digitization too,
Mhm.
which is important for the future
Yep,
when it all crumbles.
right. But of course, digital records actually, that's another argument, because how do you access digital records? But we won't go down that rabbit hole. So to me, that this is just one of these things where is this actually, you know, historic preservation? So I think we're going to have to look hard at that. I'm not saying no, I just don't know.
Okay.
Okay. So Paul, maybe we could go back to the spreadsheet and just see the implications of these grant applications. Okay. And by the way, I do apologize. I see the typos that I forgot to fix. Stop it. When you scrolled it, when you sort of, I've listed the grant requests and then the match and then the total project cost. Paul, if you were to just scroll down to this, to the subtotals, that would be helpful. Oh, I'm sorry. There's one other key thing that I forgot to mention earlier, but
Right,
if we stop right here,
commitments. Right.
it's past commitments. And, you know, we have actually 3 bonds that are obligations that affect our ability to give. I mean, we have potentially $160,000 of obligations for the library and town hall bonds. So that comes out of the pool that we have, if you will.
Right.
So we have a subtotal. If we include those 3 bonds as well as the other applications, we have a subtotal of requests of just over $477,000.
Oh, that doesn't appear here. That's your calculation elsewhere.
It's right here.
It is. Oh, grant requests. Got it.
Yeah. And we have match of $7,600. So we have a total, you know, total projects coming in around $484,000. But it's the actually the amount coming out of community preservation that I really want to point out to everyone. And it is something that we need to sort of ponder as we actually dig through these applications in depth. All right. So I don't know if some of our listeners are still on the screen, our applicants, but next week I'd like to ask Dave Aldrich to come to be able to speak in detail about the pickleball application. After having sort of done some consultation with Tony, and Tony will also need to sort of consult with us about the procurement requirements and how that may affect the grant budget thinking. And then Tony, if you're also able to coordinate with Eric Green and from the golf course application, as well as your own application, I think we could do those two sort of the pickleball courts and the golf course, the two applications in Tuesday's meeting. And we might have time to then go on to the Nahant Historical Society as the third one for that deeper review.
Lynn,
makes-
you talked earlier about the intersections between the pond project and the trees and bridges. Maybe we should talk about them as a pair.
I thought I just was trying to suggest that.
That's what you
No,
said.
you mentioned Eric, but you didn't go into much detail about the other half.
Yeah, it's Eric Green and the pond restoration. Yes, okay,
Eric
sorry.
Green and the pond crew. All right.
The pond crew, the water
Thanks.
crew on one side and the drainage
Okay.
crew on the other side.
All right.
Yeah.
Good.
Or the other way to put it is number 3 and number 7 need to get together.
7,
And
correct.
yeah, and that would be, next week would be pickleball, golf
Yep.
course
Right.
with those two applications, and then the Nahant Historical Society. And then the following week, I'd like to pick up the rest of the grant applications, which would be the 2 open space applications for Bailey's
Mhm.
Hill and Lodge Park, and then the
Right. So
Nahant rights of way and the town
Records.
records.
Okay.
So that's the 7th and then the 14th, I think, is our meetings.
Yes.
Okay. It will be great to celebrate Valentine's Day with all of you.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Well, it
And
seems-
that,
I feel like last year or the year before, compared to your available budget and the applications that you got, it seemed like a much taller challenge compared to what you have in front of you this year so far.
yep.
That's
I
good
agree
news.
with you. That is good news. I think we can do a good job here. So folks, any other sort of comments or business for us tonight from the committee?
Can I ask a question? You've been sending out these emails saying, oh, it's gonna be a great year. We're gonna have all this money. And so then people look at that and they say, well, you've got all this money. Why should we give you matching money? And so I was a little I said, well, we're looked upon more favorably if we can bring money to the table. But then it was like, well, you've got all this money. Why should we give you our money? So can you just give me a context to try to get money out of people?
You just did. Thanks. So one of the things we like to do is to maintain a general reserve. So historically, we have actually maintained, between $150,000 and $200,000. So I would rather not go into the general reserve. So from that point of view, Nancy, that you'd be saying, oh, We've got $450,000 from the surcharge and the state match. But you just heard, we already have over $160,000 of obligations because of previous bonds. So the money isn't rolling. And I also will remind you that, lurking with us is the already voted bond of $1.5 million towards the East Point situation. So whenever that, our money is the last of the money that gets drawn. There's $3 million that is being held by the town right now in an account. But when when the East Point thing moves forward, if that $3 million gets pulled in for the conservation restriction and eminent domain taking, our money comes in too. And that then really does tie us up big time. So the
Thank
bonds
you.
that we're, yeah, thank you, Nancy. And the bonds that we're looking at right now for the 3 library bonds are, by the way, are 10-year bonds. So depending on the year that they were taken, such as fiscal 19, they'll be done in fiscal 2029. Can't believe I'm saying these things. I'll never get to the end. So, all right. Well, thank you. Go around and look at things, by the way. Now you can go over to the Flash Road tennis courts and see what that's going to mean to do these modifications with pickleball. You can go to Bailey's Hill and Lodge Park and, wait around the golf course. Okay. All right,
Very good.
everybody. We're going to do this next week. How much fun is that? I wish we could have snacks. Oh, well. Okay. I don't know if I'm just looking at the chat. I'm hearing from some people that the form was not easily filled out for the applicant name and space.
Mm.
Yeah, that was me, Lynn, Julie.
Yep, I
found
see that.
It was
Yeah.
the only space I couldn't type in without moving the rest of the application down. So I just want to shout out some support for my fellow applicants.
Okay, right. That's all right. So
Yeah,
they were
thank
having
you.
that trouble.
I can always count on you, Julie.
She is good about that. Very generous.
But I want to put in 2 cents for the work that, Ellen and I tried to do to have.
Oh, yes.
Oh, yes.
And also the fact that this form was not fillable this year that came on. So people had to figure out, how to go from a PDF to a Word. And it takes like some pretty sophisticated skills to do that. So we got to make it easier for people.
I agree. And now
We have a
we've got
year now.
A year, exactly. We got a year. Tony, we got a year. Ellen and Nancy are right. We've got to make this happen. It's got to be easier.
Yeah, I agree.
Thank you.
From Dana Sheehan, he says, "Oh, well, I tried a number of ways to join the meeting. Nothing worked. When can I see the recorded Zoom meeting, please?" But it was on the town calendar, so not quite sure about that. And then he says, "I understand it's past committee's deadline. However, I have a grant application under historical preservation. It should be relatively straightforward, not controversial. The cost will be under a couple $1,000s. Some matching funds can be possible. Is this possible?" He's asking if the committee will accept late applications.
We have done that.
Okay. We have.
I mean, we
And then
have, but at the same time, it is respectful of the people who did work to get their applications into us on time. So I would say we have an obligation potentially to address those first.
Mhm. That
My
seems
opinion.
perfectly, that seems reasonable.
Yeah.
Dana, I don't know if he's able to listen to this or not. He's direct messaging. And then he goes on to say, "I had to get buy-in from the Devereaux family before applying for the application. That should happen at the end of that happened at the end of last week." So that's his reason for being late. So I think since Dana isn't able to sort of listen in here, committee, I think with your assent, what I would do is send him an email saying, we will accept a late application, but we will consider it after the review and funding of the other applications. That makes sense?
Makes perfect sense.
Okay, great. With that, could I get a motion for adjournment?
So moved.
Second,
I guess I have to do a roll call. Ellen,
Aye.
Jim Dolan,
Aye.
Paul Spurn,
Yes.
Nancy.
yes.
Okay, and I as well. All right, off you go, rejoicing,
We're
okay?
adjourned.
All right,
Thank
very
you.
good.
I'm shutting you down.
Bye.